Shalom. I've just completed Seder Kadashim in the Mishnah. I did it for the Ascent of the soul of my friend and neighbor Dave Hoffman. It's the fifth of the six books of the Mishnah. Kadashim literally means sacred objects, and that's the basic character of the book. It revolves around what amounts to what would be the equivalent of religious services today. And a central part of it is what we would call a Seuda mitzvah, the feast for a wedding or a kiddush in your shul, where you are celebrating a happy occasion or a show of dedication to Thanksgiving. Now I'll go through the different sections of the book, and I'll briefly explain them to you. The first one is Zavachim, and that is animal offerings. Now the idea is that if you're going to have a meal, you're going to like to have a nice meal, a steak. And this is what it's dealing with, basically meat and being offered on the altar. The idea is that if you're going to offer it in the temple, it's going to be the highest quality. The shechita is going to be proper. The next one is menachas, which would be bread. So if you're going to have a nice meal, you're going to have not just meat, but you're going to also have potatoes and a salad as well. This is part of that general idea. After that, it goes the opposite direction, which is chulin, which is basically meat that is used for ordinary use. What it goes into is a lot of the rules of treifot and shechita. The idea basically being that the animal, you must kill the animal. It can't just die on its own, and you can't just get something that was killed by another animal or that type of thing. It must be killed in a way that is basically painless to the animal, or as painless as possible. The idea of treifot would be the things that you would say, well, this animal was on its last legs because something horrible happened to it. Therefore, we could see that from the inside of it or even the outside. As a result, we're not going to eat it. So it deals basically with the kashrut of meat that is eaten for ordinary purposes. The opposite of meat that is eaten for sacred purposes. Next, you start dealing with specific types of sacrifices. Bechorot is firstborns, meaning the firstborn of animals. And it also is the first fruits that you're talking about. The idea is that when you have your harvest or a firstborn animal, this is more the harvest of fruits. The first is particularly dear. It shows that, hey, I'm going to have a nice bumper crop, and you got a nice grape, so you're going to bring it to the temple to offer it to Hashem as an expression of your appreciation to Him. Now, after that, it goes into that. I'm sorry. The next one is arichim, which is kind of like a game. The equivalent of it is that people will often give high $18 or shekels or multiples of it to charity because they like the number of 18. This is a variant or the source of it where you're going to say, well, I'm going to give the value of my house or the value of a possession or the value of myself as it's defined in the Torah. And as a result, that possession will be particularly dear to you because it was used as a vehicle for sacred services. Okay? The next one is Tamura, and the idea of that is that your intentions are important. Therefore, if you say this animal is going to be a sacrifice, and then you can't change your mind and say, well, it's not going to be a sacrifice, or I'll bring a different one. That's the basic idea, and the Chumash basically gives you a penalty if you try to do that. And by saying that they both are sacred and they both must be offered on the Mizbeach, and you're basically stuck with the first one. That's the basic issue of that Masechta. The next one is Cree Sauce, and when you're talking about Cree Sauce, it's an issue of Pigel, Nosir, and Tame. The idea is with Pigel is you can't do your shopping at a kiddush. You can take a little bit of it home with you, and you could give it to your children and have it the next day, but you really should be eating it all at the kiddush. In the moment it just becomes ordinary groceries, it's considered profane. That's the idea. If somebody actually is doing that, and you do see it, that they're at the kiddush to pick up some, to do their grocery shopping, it's considered a serious sin. And if the Balabite is doing it, it's a case where the whole thing is considered disgusting. And the penalty is krisis, meaning that the person is going to be estranged from religion as a result of that. He's going to have religious hang-ups as a result of doing that. The next one is Elam, and what that is about is misuse of sacred objects. Most precisely, it's like if something is going to be dedicated to the temple, you cannot use it for ordinary use. Now, if you make a mistake and you do in fact use it for ordinary use, in other words, this sheep that you are going to fleece, we're talking about biblical times, and you were going to give the fleece to Kohen, and instead you used it yourself to knit a sweater and spin it into wool, okay, you have to pay a penalty for that and bring a sacrifice to teach you that you should have been more careful. The next one is Tamid, which is it's a very prosaic, it's a very narrative section. It's the service of the priests in the temple, how they brought the sacrifices. Parts of it can be difficult because it actually goes into how they butchered a burnt offering and brought all the pieces on the altar. A different mentality today. Okay, but it is an interesting Masechta, which followed by Midos, which is a verbal description of what the temple looked like. The second temple, where it gives the dimensions, the different rooms in it. Okay? And it's often accompanied by a, shall we say, a map and a diagram, a blueprint of the temple. The last one is Kinim, which, why exactly it's last is a good question, but what it is it's literally, it means nests, it's bird offerings. The idea is that a pigeon, that's what you're dealing with, is pigeons. They're not expensive. The idea is that for certain occasions you will bring birds as an offering. The most prominent one is birth of a child. You bring two birds, so one is an Ola and one is a Khatas, basically expressing appreciation to God for having a child. The woman brings this. And basically, you have to designate the bird as a sinner offering or a burnt offering. Now, the appropriate thing to do is just do it at the last moment, because if you do it before and you get confused, then you may have to just bring a different set of birds, okay? And the birds that you are going to bring might have to be basically killed and buried. You can't do anything with them. That's the worst case scenario. So a lot of it is mathematical, and it deals with birds flying away, and you don't know if it's your bird that came back. The last line of this Masechta deals with the rewards of studying Torah. It says that when you're dealing with ordinary people, that as they get old, they get senile. But Ziknei Torah, the elders of Torah, that's not the case. Rather, all the time that they get older, they get wiser. The knowledge tends to stay with them, as it says, "Shishim chachma ba'orakim yamin tevuna." That with the very elderly there is wisdom, and with length of days there is understanding. Thank you.